John Bowlby once noted, "The hidden reactions of avoidance appear when they love you the most. Sometimes the first sign is not closeness, but silence. First came laughter, then came silence, and in that silence, love tried to hide, not because it was gone, but because it had grown too heavy to live in the open. In the beginning, love dances freely. Words spill like sunlight, filling every corner of a room." Emily remembered those nights. Michael's laughter so bright it felt endless, his stories weaving comfort into the air. But then, almost without warning, a subtle shift. His sentences grew shorter. His smile appeared, but dissolved too quickly. His voice lost its warmth, though his eyes still lingered quietly holding on. The air itself seemed different. A chill settled where warmth once lived. The room was the same, yet it felt emptier. This is the hidden paradox of avoidant love. The deeper they feel, the faster they retreat. Not because the feeling dies, but because the weight of closeness ignites old fears. For them, silence is not emptiness, it's armor. People often mistake this distance for indifference, but in truth, it is fear disguised as calm. Fear of being consumed, fear of needing too much, fear of being fully seen, and then left behind. So laughter disappears, not because love has left, but because it has become overwhelming. The quiet is not absence, it's protection. The retreat is not rejection, it's survival. He wanted to stay, he needed to stay, and still, he pulled away. And here lies the irony. Love at its strongest begins to sound like silence. But what if silence isn't absence, but the storm before confession? John Bowlby once observed, "The hidden reactions of avoidance appear when they love you the most." And here lies a paradox so sharp it cuts both ways. The closer they feel, the further they run. Love pulls them in, fear pushes them out, and in that tug of war, silence wins. At first, everything feels secure. The bond grows stronger, trust becomes deeper, and closeness looks like the beginning of safety. Sarah felt that certainty when she planned a weekend trip with Daniel, maps folded, music ready, her heart set on shared laughter and quiet mornings together. But somewhere else, Daniel's chest tightened, his pulse quickened. He stared at his phone, dread creeping in. Then with trembling hands, he sent the words, "I can't make it." The retreat wasn't born from indifference, it was born from overwhelm. To Sarah it sounded like abandonment. To Daniel, it felt like oxygen. Here is the paradox revealed. The more love he feels, the more endangered he becomes by it. Intimacy, to most hearts, feels like home, but to avoidant hearts, it can feel like drowning. The very closeness they crave awakens the fear of engulfment. If I lose myself in you, will there be anything left of me? So distance becomes their shield, space becomes their breath. What looks like coldness is in truth survival. Notice the rhythm. He wants closeness. He fears closeness. He runs from closeness. It is not absence of love but the excess of it that sends him running. The more his heart beats for her, the faster his feet carry him away. And yet the tragedy unfolds. Sarah, left with silence, feels abandoned in the very moment. Love was strongest. Two truths collide in the same room. His retreat is self-preservation. Her pain is betrayal. The paradox is cruel. Love, when deepest, disguises itself as desertion. So why does the deepest love arrive wearing the cruel mask of abandonment? Attachment theory reminds us, the hidden reactions of avoidance surface most clearly when love grows too strong. A crowded room can feel the emptiest when laughter dies, when silence grows louder than words, and love hides in the shadows. Once, the air was alive. Every corner of the room carried warmth. Inside jokes, unfinished stories, the kind of laughter that makes walls feel closer, safer. But slowly that sound thinned. What was once a current of joy became a stillness, heavy, unbroken, suffocating. Olivia felt it on a Friday night. She and Jacob sat shoulder to shoulder on the couch, phones glowing blue in the dark. The TV murmured faintly, but the louder sound was absence, the still weight between them. Her fingers twitched toward his, but they froze mid-air. His shoulders curled inward, his eyes fixed on the scrolling light, avoiding the one gaze that mattered. Here lies the paradox. When avoidants love deeply, their laughter fades first. Not because the love is gone, but because it burns too brightly inside. Their inner world floods, their chest tightens, and silence becomes a shield. Withdrawal isn't rejection, it's survival. For Jacob, the phone was more than distraction, it was armor. Each scroll was a way to breathe, to keep the tide of closeness from drowning him. He wasn't empty, he was overflowing. Too much devotion pressed against walls too fragile to hold it. And so the cruel rhythm repeats. He stays, yet retreats. He loves yet hides. He is present yet absent. To Olivia, the absence of laughter felt like the slow death of affection. To Jacob, it was the only way he could protect it. Irony sharpens the air. The moment love is deepest, it disguises itself as distance. The room without laughter isn't always barren. Sometimes it is too full, so heavy with unspoken words, so thick with unshared feelings, that silence is the only container strong enough to hold them. But in that quiet, what truly echoes? Fear of being consumed, or devotion too heavy to name? In psychology, this paradox is known. The hidden reactions of avoidance surface most vividly in contradiction. They reach out like seekers of warmth, then recoil, as if the same fire could burn them alive. It begins with closeness, a hand extended, a plan made, a door open to intimacy. But just as quickly, the same door slams shut. Desire ignites, then extinguishes in panic. Love is offered, then withdrawn. Michael lived this cycle one Thursday. He reserved Emily's favorite restaurant, picturing the glow of candles reflected in her eyes, her laughter carrying across the table like music. For a moment, he let himself step into warmth. But as the night drew closer, the warmth became fire. His chest tightened, breath turned sharp, and what had felt like safety now felt like danger. On one screen, Emily waited for confirmation. On another, Michael stared at his phone, the glow lighting his face but not his heart. His fingers typed the shield, busy with work. Simple words that hid the truth, panic cloaked in duty. This is the push and pull, forward, pause, retreat, repeat. To Emily, his withdrawal looked like doubt, like love thinning into absence. But inside Michael, it was the opposite. The wanting was too strong, the closeness too overwhelming. The fire of intimacy threatened to consume his sense of self. Psychology names this fear of engulfment, the terror of being lost inside another. Yet here lies the irony. The retreat is not proof of emptiness, but of overflow. He does not run because he feels too little. He runs because he feels too much. He reaches out, not to test her, but to test himself. He withdraws, not from absence, but from excess. He hides, not from her, but from his own trembling devotion. The push and pull is not rejection, it is survival. A tragic dance where love advances, then retreats, always circling, never settling. And if hesitation is not doubt, then what happens when love itself begins to feel like loss? Attachment theory reminds us, what looks calm outside often hides chaos within. Outside, the calm of a sleeping sea. Inside, waves crashing, thunder tearing through a hidden sky. On the surface, avoidants often appear composed, their smiles faint, their voices steady, their gestures restrained. Yet behind that stillness, currents roar. What others experience as comfort, they feel as a flood threatening to sweep them away. Sarah knew Daniel was calm. She saw him scrolling casually, posture relaxed, his face unreadable. To her it looked like distance. What she never saw was the other screen. 2 a.m. drafts piling up, messages typed then erased, his thumb trembling above the send button. The glow of unsent words lit his face brighter than the midnight lamp. His chest pounded louder than the silence of the room. Here lies the paradox. Love awakens storms that avoidance cannot name. The stronger the feeling, the harder the containment. They draft confessions but never send them, rehearse words but never speak them. Their stillness above water conceals the chaos below. Split the scene in irony, sharpens. She thinks he feels nothing, he feels everything, but cannot let it out. This is the cruel rhythm. He feels, he hides, he loves, he withdraws, he storms, he silences. Psychology calls it emotional flooding, when the nervous system overloads, when devotion feels like danger, when affection grows too heavy to hold. Retreat is not rejection, but a survival reflex against inner collapse. To Sarah, Daniel's quiet felt like neglect. Yet in truth, his hidden drafts carried more devotion than his spoken words ever had. What is unseen, unspoken, unsent, sometimes burns brightest. The storm inside rarely reaches the surface, but its winds are real, its waves relentless. And for avoidance, love is not gentle rain. It is a hurricane they must endure alone, even while sitting right beside the one they love. And if the storm never shows on the surface, how long before love itself drowns in the silence? Sometimes love speaks loudest in silence, like footsteps you never hear, yet always find their trace. Attachment theory reminds us that avoidants often whisper devotion through gestures the world might overlook. Not all love wears words on its sleeve. Some is hidden in ordinary life, subtle, almost invisible. For avoidants, this is where their heart hides. Olivia once thought Jacob had drifted away. He rarely said "I love you," rarely reached for her hand, rarely gave the reassurance she craved. But one dawn, she stepped outside into the chilly morning, frost still clinging to the windshield. Her car awaited, tank full, headlights glowing like a quiet guardian in the driveway. No note, no explanation, just presence disguised as absence. This is the paradox. What looks like distance is sometimes devotion in camouflage. Avoidants struggle to voice love, but act it out in careful, silent ways. Buying groceries before you notice they're gone, fixing a door quietly at night, sending a song link instead of a confession. Their gestures carry words they cannot bear to speak. Psychology frames it as substitution. Heart calls it safety. John Bowlby observed that attachment does not vanish under fear. It transforms. For avoidance, love becomes action, protection, silent care. To them, love is safer when wrapped in quiet, and yet the irony deepens. Partners often miss these subtle proofs. Olivia longed for words, unaware Jacob's devotion thrived in every unspoken act. What felt like coldness was in truth overflow redirected into action. Rhythmic truth emerges. No words, no note, no spotlight, just care, disguised as absence. They cannot say stay, so they fill your tank before dawn. They cannot whisper "I love you," so they warm your car when frost still lingers. They cannot admit fear, so they keep the headlights waiting until you return. Love arrives not in declarations, but in gestures, quiet, unrecorded, almost invisible. And in this silence lies their truest confession. But how long can a love wrapped in silence survive, in a world that listens only for words? Attachment theory reminds us, avoidant love often hides in paradox. The more they love, the closer they hold, and yet the colder they seem. Love with avoidance is never simple. Their hearts may burn with intensity, yet their actions can be misread as distance. What they most fear is losing themselves in the very person they cherish, and in trying to protect love, it can appear absent. Emily felt this one evening. Michael had promised a weekend together, yet cancelled at the last minute, citing work. She watched him leave the apartment, coat buttoned, hands tucked in pockets. The chill brushed her skin, and the echo of his footsteps felt heavier than words. To Emily, it looked like indifference. She wondered, does he care less than before? What she could not see was the storm inside him, a heart-wrestling fear of engulfment, fear of losing himself in the intensity of his love for her. The rhythm unfolds. They reach, they pull back, they love, they hide, they burn, they freeze. Psychology calls it the paradox of avoidant attachment, the simultaneous fear of abandonment and fear of engulfment. They crave closeness while recoiling from it. Their distance is a shield, not a barrier. Their silence is armor, not emptiness. And yet the irony deepens. Partners misinterpret these gestures. Emily longed for verbal reassurance, unaware that Michael's retreat was the measure of how intensely he felt. His devotion was vivid in emotion, quiet in expression. Their love is like a candle in the wind, flickering bright, easily mistaken for absence. Rhythmic truth. They step forward, then backward. They hold tight, then loosen grip. They love fiercely, yet appear unlovable. The tragedy is that in trying to protect love, they risk being misunderstood. In fearing loss, they risk appearing cold. In shielding themselves, they risk hurting the ones they hold closest. So when love hides in shadows, when devotion whispers instead of shouts, is it doomed, or simply unseen? Every silence holds a choice to retreat into shadows, or to return, risking everything for love. Attachment theory reminds us that avoidants often navigate devotion through silence, through absence, through acts the world might never notice. For Daniel, love was never about words spoken aloud. Each gesture, each pause, each quiet glance, carried meaning invisible to most eyes. Sarah felt it that evening, watching him sip quietly from his cup, eyes distant, yet every subtle movement whispering devotion she could almost, but not quite, touch. She wondered, was his distance pushing her away, or holding her close in the only way he knew? Across lives, Jacob, Olivia, Michael, Emily, the same pattern emerges. Avoidants move in paradox. They love fiercely, yet hide. They care deeply, yet vanish. They stay committed, yet appear gone. They give endlessly, yet remain unseen. Psychology explains this is not absence of love, but fear. Fear of losing themselves, fear of engulfment, fear that speaking love aloud may overwhelm both hearts. John Bowlby observed that attachment does not disappear under fear. It changes shape, finding expression in acts rather than words, in care rather than declarations. Rhythm intensifies. They reach, but withdraw. They protect, but seem distant. They burn with love, but appear cold. And here lies the irony, the tragic beauty of avoidant love. Its depth is hidden, its devotion disguised. The world may misread them, partners may doubt them, yet the traces remain, drafts unsent, headlights glowing at dawn, small gestures unnoticed, but profoundly felt. Have you ever waited for a word that never came, yet felt the love hiding in the pauses? Stories of Daniel, Jacob, Emily, Olivia, these patterns repeat in lives we all know, maybe even yours. And now the question lingers, if love hides itself in silence, is it distance, devotion in disguise, or something only the heart can understand? Comment your thoughts below. Every silence holds a choice, every choice writes a story, and every story asks us to see love not only in words, but in the spaces between them.